All right, when we come back, the survivalist, Stefan Verstappen, will tell us how to store fresh water and how to purify contaminated water. Stay with us.
You're listening to The Richard Syrett Show on Newstalk Saga 960 AM.
Welcome back. Week 2 of a brand new segment we're calling The Survivalist. Always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So many things happening these days, so much uncertainty in the world, the potential for massive supply disruptions, cyber attacks, EMP events, you name it. Never a better time like right now to start thinking about how you would prepare for a massive power outage, empty store shelves. What are you going to do? How are you going to survive? How are you going to protect your family? Stefan Verstappen is an emergency preparedness survival expert, a martial artist, and he's got a brand new online course called The Complete Guide to Forming Communities. Everything you need to take your freedom into your own hands, create mutual aid, support, and surviving the coming collapse. Stefan, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing good, Richard. How are you doing?
Very well. So last week we talked about food and how to build up your food stores and 6-month, 1-year food supply for your family. We also need to talk about fresh water because, people think, well, I turn on the tap. There's plenty of water. But if the electricity goes out, people forget the water filtration systems in a major city are dependent on electricity. So once the power goes out, the fresh water is going to stop running unless you've got a well, I suppose. So what do we do to ensure we have enough fresh water?
Well, we need to plan, and also we need to understand the importance of fresh water. We are spoiled beyond belief that we can just turn a tap and get fresh water coming through the tap. This is very rare in history. And throughout history, waterborne diseases is probably responsible for the majority of deaths throughout history. It's one of the reasons why the ancient Greeks and Romans drank so much wine, and of course the Scythians and the Germans drank beer, was because it was fermented and it was free from pathogens. And that's why they drank so much wine. That's why the wine was watered down to like 2% alcohol as well, because that's all they drank. All they drank was wine. If you were to take a drink of water from the well, you're risking your life. So we are spoiled. We take water for granted, but in the situation where the grid goes down, and again, one of the things we're planning for is the grid going down, and that could be for any number of reasons, whether it's hackers or an EMP pulse, an electromagnetic pulse, whether it's a solar EMP pulse that shuts down the grid, or whether it's just incompetence or a vicious winter ice storm. It can take down the grid for weeks, if not months. We've all lived through this, or here in Canada, many parts of Canada has lived months without a hydro because of a storm. So there's many reasons why this would go down. And so we plan for it to go down because, again, we take the approach of the classical Stoic. The Stoics have what they call negative imagination, and that is, what's the worst thing that can happen? Now, this is contra to all the New Age movement philosophy of always thinking positively. Well, yeah, thinking positively is nice, but a Stoic thinks about what's the worst thing that can happen and what can I do if it does happen? So we're thinking the worst case scenario. Richard, when I'm talking to you, this is not just, in case we're inconvenienced. No, this is going to be the power goes down. Now you have no water. Everybody needs minimum of 6 liters of water a day to maintain proper health and nourishment. And if the taps no longer produce water, where are you going to get it from? Okay, so we have a number of different strategies we can employ. The first strategy is to store fresh water right now. So what I do is, because I got cats, everybody knows I got the Poos cats, and I have to buy kitty litter, and they come in these plastic jugs. What I do is I take those plastic jugs after I'm done with the kitty litter. I rinse them out, add a couple of drops of bleach, rinse them out again, and then I fill them up with fresh water from the tap, and I store them underneath the sink. So I've got, each one holds, what is it, about a gallon. Each one holds about a gallon. I got 5 or 6 underneath the sink right now. It doesn't take up that much space. So at least I've got a week's supply of water stored already. And this is what I would recommend everybody do. Get a week's supply of water, 6 liters per day per person in your household, and store that. Now, the reason for 1 week worth of water is so that you don't have to immediately go out into the wilderness or to the nearest lake or pond or river and start hauling water back to your apartment. Water is heavy, So, and in the first few days of a natural disaster, you're going to have a lot of things on your mind, and you're going to have a lot of things to do, and you don't have the extra time to hike 5 miles to the local river and haul back 10 gallons of water, which is going to weigh a ton.
Stefan, I've got to take a quick time out. We'll come back and continue to discuss how to store fresh water, how to purify contaminated water. Emergency preparedness expert, martial artist, author Stefan Verstappen, back with more of our conversation. The Survivalist continues in 3 minutes. Stay with us.
Back to the conversation on The Richard Syrett Show. News Talk, Saga 960 AM.
Stefan Verstappen is with us, emergency preparedness expert, and he joins us every Monday at this time as we discuss strategies for, preparing for the worst. Of course, you hope for the best, but you should always prepare for the worst. And we're talking about fresh water. You said 6 liters per day per person in your household. So over the course of a week, that's, 7 times, that's 42 liters of water per person. If you've got, 5 people in your house, that's 5 times 40 is 200 liters. My word, that's a lot of water. So 1 week's supply is enough, and then after that, you should prepare to go out and, I guess, haul water from the local stream. Or what if you live next to the Don River? You don't want to drink that.
You don't want to fish in the Don River either. No, but there are strategies. Even if you live next to the Don River, there's still ways of purifying that. As you can see, storing water becomes problematic right away because you need so much of it. To store it, basically, get some glass bottles and some vinyl jugs and add a couple of drops of chlorine to each one before you seal it up. And that will will help it kill any bacteria or pathogens in the water, and will keep it, from growing anything. And store that underneath the sink. But we have lots of options here in the Northeast. In Canada, there's, you can scarcely go a mile without crossing a river or a pond or a lake. So now your next strategy is going to be, try and store as much water as you can, all right? Great. If it can last 3 days a week, that's perfect because, like I said, it's just to give you breathing room because you're, dealing with a crisis situation. You don't want to right away start to try and figure out how to purify water and where to go get it. So it gives you, 3 days, a week's worth of breathing room. For me, it's easy to store a week's worth of water because it's just me and the cats. But if you're a family, it's going to be a problem. So now your next strategy is going to be a plan. How will we get water after a week? And you're probably going to have to go to a local river or a pond. So now we get into water purification. And you need to have that equipment now. You better get ready for that equipment now. Now, there's 2 dangers from water that you get out of the river and the creek. The number one is the pathogens. All right, there's like a dozen different diseases, everything from cholera to typhoid to E. coli in the water that will really cause you a lot of misery. Now, the easiest way to destroy the pathogens is to use bleach. So you've got those water purification tablets. If you've ever been up in Algonquin Park canoeing, they usually give you some of those. You put one of those little pills in a liter a canteen and you swish it around, sit for an hour, and then you're probably okay. It will kill the pathogens. And so the same thing if you have to get water from the local lake or the local river. And it's going to be hard to carry all that water back. You're going to have to make several trips a week. But yeah, you can use bleach in that water. So have some bleach on hand, number one. Now, there's other alternatives such as water filters, like the Berkey water filter, which is a gravity fed through these filters, and that will allegedly take out all the pathogens, the viruses, the bacteria, and some of the some of the heavy metals will be taken out by these water filters too. Problem is they're expensive, and eventually those filters will get clogged, and then they're not going to be any good. So you have to store extra filters, and the whole thing gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. Again, it depends on the kind of water. If you're taking water out of the Don River and running it through the Berkeley, yeah, that filter is going to get clogged up really quickly. There's other methods, and I know we don't have much time, so should I cut to the chase? What's my favorite method?
Yeah, let's go right to that. We can spend more time next week if we need to.
Boiling water is always a good way. You kill the pathogens. Boiling water. Bring it to a boil for 4 minutes is the standard theory on that. But as soon as the water reaches boiling point, it will have killed all the pathogens. So a Berkey water filter, there are dozens of other kinds of water filters on the market, reverse osmosis water filters, and boiling the water. Those are all ways to kill the pathogens. The trouble is there's a lot more in our water that are harmful that we don't even know about. There's lead, there's iron, there's magnesium, there's fluoride. There's a lot of nasty stuff in the water. These filters and boiling it won't get rid of that. It'll get rid of some of it, but it won't get rid of all of it. So the one thing, for me, the surefire way to guarantee I will always have pure water is a distiller. Now, you can get the electric ones. They sell them, but again, if the power goes out, the electric ones are no use. So what I got is a distiller. I bought it on Amazon, 180 bucks it cost me, which is a lot of money for me. But the distiller guarantees I could take water from the Don River, and so long as I distill it, the water that comes out the other end is going to be pure. No pathogens, and also better yet, no mercury, no fluorides, no heavy metals, no lead. It takes all that out. So you can drink from the Don River so long as you run it through a still. So that would be my final recommendation. I have a still that I can put on the stovetop and turn up the stove, but I can also put it on a campfire. The only problem with the still is that you need fuel, but if you, we're in Canada, everything is forest here. So you can build a fire, put the still on top of the fire, like you would a cooking stove, and you can purify anything. You could take sewage water and drink it once it's gone through the still.
How much water can you produce with this method, let's say in a few hours?
Well, the one I have is 5 gallons, and I imagine it would take about 3 hours to get through 5 gallons. And again, depends on how hot the fire is and how quickly it's boiling. You might have to keep it running, all day long and
right.
Build up your water supply. And then next week you run it for another day and build up your water stores. But it's the one thing that it will guarantee to produce clean water no matter what, and you don't have to buy any more filters, you don't have to use chemicals. The distiller have one. It's not that big, it's like a big pot, but that way you are guaranteed fresh water, and fresh water is crucial during a collapse scenario. If you don't have fresh water, you're not going to make it.
You got that right. All right, Stefan, for stopping. The website is chinastrategies.com, and you can sign up for his online course, The Complete Guide to Forming Communities. And also there's a survival library there that you can download, 180 survival books that'll teach you how to survive any emergency or disaster. chinastrategies.com. Stefan, we'll talk again next week. Thank you for this.
Have a good week.
All right.